Hello and welcome to Minority Arts Appreciation Society podcast, where we're ticking all the boxes. My name's Josh. I lead the music discussion. Pronouns are he and him.
My name's Matty. My pronouns are she and her, and I lead the film discussion.
And today we're continuing our Joanna Newsom retrospective with her 2006 album Ease. Shockingly, only 2 years after the debut, the Milk-Eyed Mender, we get Ease, which is a very huge sonic step up for Newsom in terms of the first one we described as quite lo-fi and minimalist points, and this is fully orchestrated. This is going from Twilight Princess to Skyward Sword in terms of the scope of instrumentation which we are being opened up to. And I guess some context background for the album is a big emotional spurring for this album was the death of Joanna Newsom's best friend, who during touring for Milk-Eyed Mender, her best friend died in a car crash. And while, in my opinion, there's only one song that explicitly, which in my opinion, the final track, explicitly talks about that, it kind of permeates throughout the album, the kind of mournful tone and deathly imagery. That's some context. Not the most fun context.
That's so sad.
Yeah. Yeah, super sad. And the album title is really interesting. I always, for the longest time, had no idea how to pronounce the album title for this album. I thought it was wise because what? How do you pronounce this fucking
East? Yeah, this consonant word. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you know the background, where the title comes from?
No.
Well, I didn't know about it. I had to look it up. East comes from a city of myth, which was engulfed into the ocean. Which again follows my personal reading that the first two albums are horrified of water, and
God, it's like me. Sorry,
nautical will always come for you and take you. And Ease is a city that was taken by water, and I think this really adds to the idea of these first albums being about this looming ever presence of danger, being engulfed, death, and losing people. Yeah, and again, there's not a super lot of trivia or background for this that it seems is highly relevant, other than just snooping into someone's personal life. Which I will do. One interesting thing is it would have been around the release of the album, which coincides with the early rise of Lonely Island, and she actually met, probably while she was recording this, if I get the timeline right, I think at least how it's been released, she met Andy Samberg, who was a huge fan of her, and she was a fan of Lonely Island. She thought through. Have you seen the show Portlandia?
Oh, I know of it. Yeah.
Excellent show, featuring the lead guitarist from Sleater Kinney, Carrie Brownstein, who is worthy of all of our love and affection.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, Joanna Newsom's friends of Fred Armisen, who's the comedian from Portlandia, and he introduced her to Andy Samberg. I think it was just after the Just Two Guys video had come out. Are you familiar with the Just Two Guys song by Lonely Island?
No.
That's fair. Well, Just Two Guys is one of the earlier cuts. I think the YouTube upload for Just Two Guys was 15 years ago. Holy shit.
Oh my god.
YouTube's been around for 15 years.
We're so fucking old.
We're all gonna die. Okay. 2005. So it was the premiere of the song, I guess, or it just came out, and that's when she met Andy Samberg, and she was into the song, and in the Just Two Guys, and also We Need Love, Andy Samberg plays. Oh, what's the name of the character? 1 minute. I have to get this right.
Yeah, of course you do.
And Andy Samberg cameos as Steve the C Word, who they irrationally hate and don't invite to anything.
Right.
So when she met Andy Samberg in 2005, presumably, she was like, oh, "You're Steve the C Word," and that was the first thing she said to her future husband and father of her child. So, again, just keeping the timeline straight. Yeah, at this point, she has met Andy Samberg, but they won't get married for a good few years.
That is exciting.
So yeah, I like to think that in some way this is relevant. Anyway, so yeah, onto ease. Oh, actually, before we jump into this, word of the day. What's our word of the day for ease? What word did you learn from this album, Matty?
I learned the word pharisees
What does that
from
mean?
the song Emily. The Pharisees were this is Google. They're a biblical group, but they're talked about in the Bible. But they were, like much of the Bible, they were a historical, factual thing, and they were like a school of thought, almost, like a philosophical group of people. So I learned that these people exist from that word. I didn't learn what they were because it was a confusing rabbit hole that I did not have time to go down into.
Well,
but
to quote Genius, the Pharisees believed that God gave Moses the knowledge of these laws. I think they were like an early part of Judaism that was into like the Ten Commandments and Moses stuff.
Okay.
They're like an early part of that religion for me.
Yeah.
Like how I was raised, I was raised that Judaism was basically really into the Old Testament and not so sure about the New Testament.
Yeah.
And that's what I was raised about, like the Jewish faith. But that's like what I was taught by Christian parents. So who knows? But anyway, cool. Pharisees. We learned a new word today. And yeah, so immediately, I don't know how you listen to this, but I was listening to this on a streaming service, and immediately you see the difference. There's only 6 songs, but it's the same length. So you're in for some gigantic mammoth tracks. And yeah, I remember I had a weird history of this album where I always really like struggled with it compared to Milk Eyed Benders like totally clicked with me. I really just instantly, as soon as I heard that first plucking of the harp on Bridges and Balloons, just infatuated with. And Ease I found like tough to get into.
Oh, that's interesting.
So what happens with Ease every single time is I listen to Emily. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is one of the greatest pieces of music ever recorded. This is mind blowing. This song kills me a little bit every time I listen to it. Like the best thing she had done up to this point, like it is just insane. Like I love Milk Eyed Mender, but in my opinion, this is just a new watermark, like for Joanna. And then I hit Monkey and Bear. So I've never gotten, and it was a thing of like, I always stopped like during Monkey and Bear. I was like, oh, not for me. So I was really stuck with this album for like a long time, and I found it like tough to get into, despite its legendary meme status, like the indie harp album that everyone has to listen to. And how about you? Did you have any like previous encounters with this album?
Literally, I can only speak to its meme status by the fact that I have seen this album title countless times. Covers rather, sorry, countless times. Despite the fact that I, like I said in the previous episode, I'm not in this specific genre music scene at all, and yet I still get some like shrapnel from it. It is so prominent, but no, like I have no history or anything with this album.
It was ridiculously huge. Like it was pretty much like the most acclaimed album of 2006. Arguably only rivaled by like Jay Dilla Donuts.
Oh wow. Yeah. It was, those are too heavy.
It was, and the Kingdom Hearts 2 soundtrack, of course.
Oh, bro. Fucking
Lazy Afternoons. That's a great song from the Came Out 2 soundtrack.
No, that is genuinely a fantastic. That's a fantastic song. Yeah.
There you go. All right. That's it. So be sure to like, follow, and subscribe. I'm kidding. So this was a huge thing. And yeah, and I guess hearing your thoughts on the last album, I have like no idea how you're gonna react to this album, because on one hand, if you didn't like the kind of stripped back, intimate, gorgeous instrumentation of Milk-Eyed Mender, then this album maybe I can imagine would be more appealing because it is like more grandiose and busy. Like it's, the songs here are a lot more busy, like literal orchestras happening. However, I would argue I kind of prefer the songwriting approach in Milk-Eyed Mender, and I think that a lot of the winding, epic, huge arrangements on this album can feel a bit more meandering. So your criticism in Milk-Eyed Mender songs feeling meandering, I think is like, I actually agree with it at points in this album, not for that one, but for this one. So I have no idea like if this was your angel or your
I could be your angel or your devil.
Yeah. Your angle. I don't know if this is your angle or your devil.
Indeed. So I guess to just get on into it, I think I'll start off by saying that I got a lot more out of this one. However, with an asterisk, I think this album represents an expansion in her toolbox of instruments that she's employing. And the production is completely changed to fit that. But also, of course, there's a like songwriting expansion. Everything is so much more drawn out, and there's 5 songs. First off, I found the most significant addition to be the addition of strings. And as soon as they were brought in, I realized they were the component that I was lacking in Milk-Eyed Mender, just something to draw me in, because I really found that those strings really drew out some of the palpable sense of yearning, longing majesty that I felt was lacking in the previous album, that it didn't quite hit home for me all the way as I would have hoped it would. And so the vocals feel like a less prominent part in the overall production. And so the result is just a much more resounding and impactful experience. And that better experience meant that I was drawn more into the narrative aspects of this album, albeit I feel I haven't really had the time to get to know these stories in the way that I feel like they're meant to be known, if that makes sense. Like they are.
Dude, I honestly find this album at points completely like dense and inscrutable. Like I've had this album in my life for 3 years. I do not have a solid grip on what Only Skin is about. I've sat down, I've read the whole thing. I've read opinions, and I can kind of see points. This album's tough. Like I think this album's really tough.
I do frequently find myself just tuning into like a really charming passage or a powerful, incredibly well put together lyric that draws the emotions out of the instrumentation incredibly well. But kind of like you got onto, Josh, I find with the album's progression, my mind started to wander in a way that it actually sort of didn't in Milk-Eyed Mender. In Milk-Eyed Mender, that consistently, 5 or 6 minute track length meant that there was always a very like neat narrative bullet point. Whereas in this, these gargantuan songs with how trailing they can become, I found it very easy to become distracted. I felt like I'd experienced most of what the album had to offer because they felt so substantive and they really earned their length. So a song like Only Skin, which spoilers I sort of didn't really enjoy, it truly overstays its welcome being longer than those other songs. So yeah, I ultimately I really adore some of these sonic additions that Newsom has made, and it made her art something I could actually engage with. Like, and she has fixed that me problem by certain musical additions. But in other aspects, that the songwriting style really hasn't worked for me, because I just really found it to be meandering and kind of overstaying its welcome and not really earning its length, partly because it's so hard to get to grips with what it's actually about. So yeah, that's how this album's hitting me.
Yeah, I think it does earn its length. Like, I never feel like it's cheap or taking, or I don't feel like it's self-indulgent.
No,
Like,
no, I wouldn't say that.
compared the lyric writing on this album to Yeats, T.S. Eliot, Wordsworth, like classics, and I think she is shooting for literature likeness. Like, I really do think she's trying to stretch how literate lyric writing could be to its absolute limits. Like, this is even more verbose and heady than like a Leonard Cohen, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's super commendable. And I in no way ever feel like I never feel like it's self-indulgent or pointless. It's just, as someone who really loved the first album, I loved how like intimate and direct and visceral a lot of the album is, as I kind of talked about in that last review. And with the extended literary obfuscations, I do find this album to be a bit like emotionally distancing, and I come off a bit colder, like impressed but colder. And it's weird because this album, like the sound of this album, is what in the zeitgeist Joanna Newsom sounds like. This is her OK Computer. Like, this is when people think Joanna Newsom album, this is the sound that they think.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, but I do prefer the plucky, homesprung and direct and visceral approach on Milk Eyed Mender. But I wouldn't use that as a way to disparage this album. It's just that basically there are 5 songs here, and I kind of aren't into 2 of them. And they're like both really long.
Yeah.
So that is a really like weird album listening experience, right?
And it's like, I like what this album is doing. It's just there are a couple or a few songs that I don't like on it. And just statistically, and I hate to boil my opinion on an album down to like fractions, but at the same time, you know, like, you can only take things as a whole so much if a certain amount of that is affected.
Well, I mean, it's the pacing, like the listening. For me, I think I basically think Emily, Sawdust and Diamonds, and Cosmere are like mind-blowingly good. Like, we'll get to that. Like, those tracks are like, I listen to it and I'm like, how do you walk into a room of instruments with nothing and then come out with Sawdust and Diamonds? Like, what genius do you need to get to that place? But those moments are separated by Monkey and Bear and Only Skin, which, while evocative and moving at points, I find hard to connect to or fully engage with all the way through. And the fact that it goes song I love, Emily, then Monkey and Bear, which is like, I get good, but I don't fully okay. And then Sawdust, okay, I'm back. And then Only Skin, like, okay, 16 minutes of Only Skin. I can do this. I can like this time. I don't really get it. It's not connecting with me fully, palpably. And then Cosmere, like, oh, Jesus fucking Christ. I'm like, you know, tearing up, right? You know, like, it's just such a discombobulated listening experience when you don't like those 2 specific tracks that much.
Yeah, no, that's really true. I really quite like Monkey and Bear. However, I would just say that I feel like my emotional attachment to Joanna Newsom's music in general is just a lot less intimate than yours. Especially, I mean, just that's outside of even like just the time element. Like I said, this is a sort of genre gray area for me. So yeah, I think it's not so much of a problem with me engaging with songs like Monkey and Bear.
Fair enough. I guess I just, man. What did you get out of Monkey and Bear? I guess because like I think it's I like the kind of move towards this theatrical orchestration. It's very grand and majestic, and little stuff like the jazzy saxophones that show up in the background every now and then are like really cool and lush and nice.
Mm.
I read the narrative of the Monkey and Bear trying to, I guess, survive together. You know, there's that great line, but Ursula, you've got to eat something. They still got to pay the bills. It isn't super evocative to me, and like the metaphor that is run throughout the track doesn't do much for me, I guess, and I can't like draw a through line between like what it means to me personally.
Yeah, you can't sink your teeth in.
Yeah, did you get more out of it? I guess that.
No, if I'm being honest, I feel like the tale of to me in a very like folklorish way, in a very like honestly in the same way that the melody appeals to me, that it's filled with a lot of like charming pipe instruments and like interesting little witty passages, and it's really whimsical, but kind of in that quite surface level folklorish way where it's just a nice charming story. So yeah, to answer your question directly, like no, I couldn't really extract anything greater from it.
Okay, and then with Only Skin, which is another song that I guess we both struggled with. Right? 60-minute long epic. From what I've gleaned from it, it is a tale of lovers who go through like a basically a war, right? You know, like World War II kind of imagery, heavy throughout this, and there's the feeling of, I guess, PTSD. You know, like the line that jumped out the most to me, like listening to it, and the way Joanna sings it is amazing. Is you know, among all of her like whimsical, fantastical imagery, there's that line, that's an awfully real gun. Like,
oh my god,
such like a brutish and blunt line.
Yeah,
and probably about a soldier experiencing PTSD, right?
Scarily grounded. Yeah, I found with Only Skin, I feel like it's helped by these really like infatuating swirling strings in the beginning. And I can imagine you in the beginning of this song convincing yourself like, yes, I mean, I know you like this song, like, you know, probably more than me, but and being like, yes, I'm going to enjoy that. But and the ending has this sort of climactic duet harmony outro, but it's just the middle that I don't know.
Yeah,
It just keeps going. It just keeps going, and it like I don't like the Joanna Newsom thing, but like I guess overall, like I like her songwriting and her skill on this album, and everything about this is so immaculate that like I can't help but like it. But this really feels like the middle section of the song feels like Joanna Newsom doing the Joanna Newsom thing, and not a lot more. And with this song, occupying such a substantive amount of this album, I was really hoping for more, which I just didn't feel like I got sonically. And like you said, I don't know, it's just just purely in time. I don't feel like I've had the time to get to know this song like I wish I could. But I don't know if that's a me problem or an Only Skin problem.
Yeah, I think I don't think this is Joanna just doing her Joanna thing. I wouldn't agree with that because like
Mm-hmm.
she's never written a 16-minute long epic about war. And that's
Okay,
so
yeah, that's
not Joanna
fair.
Newsom. It might like this
Yeah,
is a huge subversion of her usual lyrical topics, right? It
right.
describes there's a great line, and the cities we pass are flickering wasteland. This is like post-war wreckage they're looking among.
Mm,
Um, but I think some themes. So I wouldn't agree with that like statement. But I
yeah.
do agree that like musically, it doesn't build in a way that is super satisfying when you get to the end. For me, at least, like um, I don't feel like there's a huge payoff like
Mm-hmm.
sitting through it musically. But some of the themes that I really liked from her previous work here, I've always read these albums as being about this abyss that is encroaching constantly. And there's
Mm-hmm.
this line, uh, while down in the lowlands, the crops are all coming, we have everything.
Mm,
Kind of this gratitude, we're okay, we're doing fine. And then suddenly life is thundering blissful towards death. Like
mm.
even if life is blissful, you're still thundering towards death, you know?
Yeah.
And that is an amazing moment. So there are like snippets of moments that really catch me and grab me and sound really good. But like
Mm-hmm.
musically as a song, I'm not really that into it. But I guess to move on to the positive portion of the review, let's do favorite and least favorite track.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mind if I start?
Yeah, of course, go for it.
So first I'll start with the opening track, Emily, which I think at this point of her career, so far of like what we've talked about, is my favorite Joanna Newsom song. Um, uh,
Mm.
it is just
Wow.
completely awe-inspiring. It opens in a very similar way to the first album. The first album opens with they sailed away on a winter's day, you
Yeah.
know, and this opens with the meadowlark, the chimichurri, and the sparrow set to the sky. It always begins with like this journey is beginning. uh,
Yeah.
but but obviously both have this wistful like memory aspect to it, like
Oh, yeah, I
be the
completely
ones to have
agree.
seen. And then Emily also has it's her trying to remember things about her. Emily Newsom. That's some meta knowledge. A fun fact: Emily Newsom actually provides backing vocals in this song, which is extremely cute.
Oh, I love shit like that. Shit like that is
Yeah,
the best.
yeah. So I love Emily. I kind of read the song as I've talked a lot about how I think Joanna writes a lot about the encroaching abyss that is like tightening its grip on you. And I think this song is kind of like trying to hold on to memories of a loved one. And gradually the memories get fuzzier and more dreamlike and like looser
Mm.
until you're losing grip of like basic facts. Like for example, most of the memories of the sister are framed as dreams. And then also, she remembers her sister telling her a concrete fact, a scientific fact about meteors. Um, and there's this, yeah, it's this amazing, iconic, and yes, much memed chorus. The
The
meteorite is the
meteorite.
source of the light, but the meteor is just what you see. And if you actually pass through this scientifically, it is incorrect. Like she is mis-explaining how meteors work. And it's this idea that even trying to hold on to like a scientific fact, this memory that shouldn't be broken, that you don't have to reconstruct constantly, like you do personal memories,
Mm.
even that is corroding. It's very like Dark Souls too. And then this meteor metaphors. That's the second Dark Souls reference I've made in this new seven.
You just fucking love Dark Souls 2, you crafty little bitch.
This meteor reference like starts off very scientific and then winds up with the almost like the bone from Sadie, which was like a metaphor for like
Mm.
life becoming death, right? And
Right.
the meteorite becomes like a bone thrown into the void, sorry, thrown from the void that lies quiet and offering to thee.
Mm.
Like this imagery of void and abyss, like per- purges everything, and memories
Yeah.
being lost to it. And I love that. I love it so much. And then my favorite line from the song is might be my favorite like lyric that she has written is we could stand for a century staring, our heads cocked in the broad daylight at this thing, joy. landlocked in bodies that don't keep, dumbstruck with the sweetness of being until we don't be. And I think that really captures like what I've been trying to say about what I think her music is about at this point, like in terms of kind of contrasting beauty with death, right? You know, dumbstruck with sweetness of being, but we're locked in bodies that will die, and we can appreciate sweetness until we can't. And Jesus fucking Christ, like it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, her music seems to be so wrapped up in just the fundamental curse of like being human. She seems like one of those wonderful tortured souls that has such a genuine affection for life, but also is completely tortured by the knowledge of her own mortality, which I have also been finding as of late. Just sitting there being like, damn, I'm gonna die. All of this is gonna wash away. So yes, I really love her music for that element, because it is just like, like here is a person with like such skill and such a take such a joy in life, and yet here she is terrified. She just gripping on with every lyric to some semblance to just one memory that seems to be fading, like you were saying, and like it's simultaneously comforting and terrifying.
Yeah, and if you think about even like not even your own death, but the death of others.
Yeah,
Thinking about every memory you have deeply care about. It will portent there. One of you will go at some point, and this has to be a memory, and the memory will gradually get less and less real, more dreamlike, and less reliable until it's hard to remember them. And that's like, you know, as dementia sets in. I mean, it's the curse isn't dying. It's forgetting. That's what I'm horrified of.
It's the lines on the beach being, the lines on the beach being washed away is the true death. Yeah.
But and then we get Sawdust and Diamond, which is pain. Like for me, this is just pain. There is this heartbreaking, gut wrenching, like harp loop thing that she does throughout the entire song, which is so tense and unnerving, and like, it's really
uncomfortable. It's
100% uncomfortable is the word.
It really brings home to me that feeling of being in the midst of heartbreak and just that anxiety that refuses to go away, but it's a specific romantic anxiety, and the way the harp sounds, which is just a gorgeous instrument being used in such a horrible way, really just is so perfect for that emotion, because it's you're feeling that love die, and you could still hear that in the harp, but at the same time it's so uncomfortable. So yeah.
You talked about how like tough, how amazingly emotionally evocative the use of harp is on this track. And for me, like the way it loops and keeps going and going for like the 8-minute runtime of the song as like a backbone to it, feels like what it feels like to hold back tears. Like it feels like the moment when you know you're gonna cry, but you're not really crying yet, and it's just sustained for like 10 minutes. It's pretty tough, and like another nice little like editing trick that she does in this that I really like. Not really editing trick, but like a cool structural thing. And she does this even more pronounced than Have One on Me on the track, which we'll get to. Is the thing where it starts with this image of from the top of the flight of the wide white stairs. The rest of my life, do you wait for me there? When I hear wide white stairs, I think about stairs to heaven, right? And does someone wait for you in death? And I've been reading this as being about a lover. I think there are hints of like memories of her friend who passed away here, and also some have read this as being again about losing a child. You know, like a baby being aborted. and coping with that, which is mainly extrapolated from the song Baby Birch, which we'll get to in the next album, which is explicitly about abortion. She's never spoken this in an interview, but like it kind of, yeah, you can
It's
read
just
it.
obvious. Yeah.
And how the song builds and builds and builds, and then at the end, all of that stripped back away, and we get back to that first line of the wide white stairs and will you wait for me there. And again, it that feeling of encroaching, like as much as you can grow and develop and move and build, you're always going to be brought back to this question of the abyss that you have to confront, right? It's always going to be this minimal, quiet moment. It's gorgeous, and there's imagery of like the bell dropping downstairs, hear it fall forevermore. And yeah, the bell dropping into the sea, being blotted out, drowned, muted like a. And then possibly one of my favorite parts of the song, the long face bit, which is similar to the end of Only Skin actually, calls back to that thing of confronting the abyss with love, like for another person or other people, child, or your friends. The damnable bell tolls, and it tolls me, it tolls me, it tolls me, like it's coming. But there's this wonderful bit of and though our bones they may break and our souls separate, why the long face? And though our bodies recoil from the grip of the soil, why the long face? Like this kind of the way you cheer up a friend, like, hey, why the long face? Driving like the brutal slow process of death. I love the whimsy and buddy kind of word option, the colloquialism of it, contrasted with the utter grimness of losing someone. Like trying to comfort a friend who's already dead, and you imagine, I guess, talking to them, I don't know, swallowing their sadness. Oh, so good. And then my last favorite track is Cosmere, which is a fantastic closure, and probably the one most explicitly about the death of her friend. There's the song which is, it breaks the poetry of the album. It is very frankly, help me, Cosmere, I'm grieving.
God.
And Jesus, man, it really messes me up.
It's dark.
That final line, and though I tried so hard, my little darling, I couldn't keep the night from coming in. It feels like the end of this kind of era of Newsom for me, where this whole time we've been singing about this encroaching abyss, this water that will find us, and in the end, like the pail, you can't stop the pail from coming in. Like you'll lose a friend, and it's gonna get you. Blending of the beauty and the grim, and this is same as how she describes how she imagines the dead body of her friend, right? After a car crash, you can imagine a bludgeoned, bloody face, right? And here it's described as dried rose petals, red brown circles framed your eyes and stained your knuckle.
Jesus.
Like it. Fucking hell, man! Like there is
God.
It's so the brutality being using floral imagery to describe such brutality.
That's bold.
It is so potent. The suggestion that with death comes love, and with sadness comes love. Like the final line is, "But release your precious heart to its feast for precious hearts." The idea that ironically, as the heart of her friend is released, it goes to Newsom's precious heart, and they feast on it, on that love. Joanna Newsom's really good. I love it. And my least favorite song is Monkey and Bear. And overall, I'd give this a decent recommend. I think it's an amazing album. Hopefully it's come through in my discussion of my favorite songs from this. But I like Newsom when she's more direct, as we get at the end of Cosmere and in Emily. I'd argue. And even in Sawdust, I think we do get that visceral kind of quality. But decent recommend. How about you?
Okay, so I want to carry on with Cosmere because I don't want to have to dredge that up after we reminisce. The one thing that I found really evocative, which you referenced as well, is like, and the night comes pouring in. It honestly felt like a sort of twisted bookend to Swansea from the other song where I talked about the wild, wild night there. And it seems like this almost sad lamenting of like realizing the truth of life, and like, I don't know, it's taking a look at taking a look underneath the plaster and seeing something that at the end you actually really didn't want to see, but it's too late now, and the night simply pours in. So yeah, it's just a beautiful song. It's just a beautiful song that, God, the kind of thing that just makes you think, like, God, I hope she's okay, and you know she's okay because she's a person and people deal with this stuff, but it makes you wonder.
Literally, all of us are gonna lose
Yeah,
a best friend, a lover, a parent.
and with that, yeah, with a song bringing those feelings so powerfully to the surface, it just ultimately this song makes me wonder how any of us with ourselves going through this kind of thing. Yeah, I think we're just an amazing group of people, to be honest.
Well, I think that's why it's so honest, because the secret is you don't.
Yeah,
When
no,
you lose
exactly.
people you love, it breaks something in you, and it doesn't come back.
Yeah,
That's the pain you live with. But like the ending of this album says, the release of that precious heart is a feast for precious hearts.
yeah,
That pain is a sort of love in its own way, and
no, completely.
yeah.
Next, is Emily. Yeah, this is fantastic. There's something just so immediately captivating about Emily that really let me know that this was going to be an entirely different story for me. For just in terms of how I would experience it, the Milk-Eyed Mender. When I listen to it, I kind of long for the rush of being like a fan when this came out, and just the step up. Not to say that one is like qualitatively better than the other, but just seeing an artist so boldly take on an entirely new means of presenting herself. Not entirely, but the thing that most stands out to me about this track and about this album is the production. In Milk-Eyed Mender, her voice, like, auditorily, like, huge part of the melody in that, and it's just such a prominent aspect of the recording. Whereas here, it's just this universality is applied to everything, and so Emily is just this wonderful swirling mass of gorgeous instrumentation, and that includes her voice. And God, it shines. It really shines. And finally, is Monkey and the Bear. I just find it incredibly charming. And finally, my least favorite track was Only Skin, which I explained in length.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I would give this a decent recommend. This is like a huge step up for me from her previous album.
Yeah, there's no moment on Milk-Eyed Mender where I'm like not dying. Whereas here I'm like, I don't have to listen to Only Skin today. I can just skip to Cosmere. And that never happens on Milk-Eyed Mender. Cool. So that's ease.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, what film are we doing next week?
So next week, we're going to be checking in with Gal, my queen, Sally Hawkins, star of my favorite movie, The Shape of Water, in Mike Lee's...
Is she also in the Godzilla vs. Kong film?
She's not in that because she is brutally murdered in the Godzilla and it's the funniest thing I've ever seen.
I forgot that she died in Godzilla.
Yeah, Sally Hawkins just checked the fuck out of that franchise. She was like, I'm out. You will not take my career, you bitches. So we're going to be checking in with her in Mike Lee's Happy-Go-Lucky, following this happy-go-lucky teacher in North England who is
like New Girl.
Yes, but
I
have a problem with what you just said, and I don't want to this podcast now. So the source of her immense positivity towards life is a source of like confusion for the people around her. So it's sort of a comedy drama,
like the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Oh fucking hell! Jesus fucking Christ! Oh yes, Josh, like the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Cool. Okay. Everyone at home, get into a relationship, end the relationship, listen to Have One on Me. And then also come and listen to Happy Go Lucky to hopefully gain an optimistic view on life after this maelstrom of emotions you've gone through. And yeah, so we'll catch you later. In the description, you can find our social media links, and you can follow us for updates, and be sure to subscribe in your preferred streaming service to keep listening. So,
Awesome.
yeah. Goodbye.
Thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.